Reddit, what's the time you saw a butthole kid get what they deserve? Story 1. I played soccer my freshman year of high school, and my team was one of the better ones in our division. There was a team from another school who we had heard would always try and cheat their way to a win, faking injuries, trying to injure you when the refs weren't looking, etc. And finally, we got our chance to play them. Their team was playing man-to-man defense, so the same girl was guarding me basically the entire game. Every time she would get close to me, she would dig her fingernails into my skin. So by the time we got to a break, my arms were completely shredded. I told my coach what was going on, and he went to mention it to the refs. They said they would watch out for it, but when play resumed, she kept right on doing it, and the refs continued to not notice it. Finally, I was pretty fed up. At one point, she came and stood right behind me, but also slightly to my right. As soon as she reached out to touch me, I popped her in the stomach with my elbow as hard as I could. She of course fell to the ground and pitched a big fit, and they ended up stopping the game. When the refs came over, she was being very dramatic, rolling around and withering in pain, and she told them this whole sob story of what had happened. I'm sure it did hurt a little, because I meant it to, but it certainly didn't hurt as much as she was making it seem. The refs went ahead and red carded me though, despite our previous complaints about this girl, so went and sat up in the stands with some of the parents. By the time play resumed, she was magically feeling good enough to play again, except this time she was guarding my friend Kay, who is much more awesome and less patient than I am. This girl starts doing the same thing to Kay that she had been doing to me, but Kay only put up with this for about 45 seconds before she turned around and popped her one right in the face. The girl ended up having to sit out the rest of the game because her nose was bleeding pretty badly, and Kay was red carded as well and got to come hang out in the stands with me. It was of course awesome watching Kay punch the girl in the face, but the aftermath was awesome as well. 1, we won the game. Actually, we beat that team every subsequent year of high school as well. 2, it was found out after the game that one of the refs was actually related to one of the girls on the other team, so they actually downgraded Kay and I's red cards to yellow cards. And 3, the next year when we played that same team, Kay managed to catch the girl's eye before the game started and give a really menacing look. We saw the girl go talk to her coach right after that, and she ended up sitting out that entire game. We never saw her after that. Oh, and we won states that year as well. If there's one thing I've learned about most girls' sports, is that they play a lot dirtier than boys. Not necessarily cheating, but just so much extra violence. I hate to say she got what was coming, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Story 2. Worked in a pet store when I was in high school, and we had a real issue with this particular family letting their kids act like dog bags all over the store. One fateful day, this butthole family walks in, and the dog bag daughter goes right into the puppy room. Kids can't hold dogs without a parent, and no one picks up a pup unless we are the ones to get them out of their little runs for them. Welp, a little Miss Buttwipe reaches in and grabs a pup by the leg and tries to pull it towards the wall of the run so she can lift it out. I see this on my CC monitor by the register and run over to her to stop her from hurting the puppy. By the time I get in, she has hoisted the dog up by one leg and nearly has him over the wall of the run. Mom and Dad are standing right there and not doing crud when I walk in. Before I get a word out, the terrible daughter sees me and drops the puppy back into the run and turns around like nothing happened. I yell at the girl and her parents obviously get defensive and offer to play back the tape of their daughter hauling the puppy up by its leg, then dropping it 4 feet onto a tile floor. I tell them they need to go, and of course they refuse. As I go back up front to inform the manager, I notice little Miss Frickwit poking her fingers into the feeder rat cage while shaking it. The rat in that cage was a jumbo feeder and was separated from the other feeders because she had just had a litter of pups. Now, rat moms are good moms. They'll protect their babies, unlike mice who give zero freaks about their progeny. This is important. Donghole's daughter has her finger in the cage and is banging on the opposite side when karma strikes. Mama Rat is not having any of this garbage and runs right up to the girl's soft pink finger and bites down hard on the little brat's finger. All heck breaks loose because Mama Rat isn't letting go and rat bites blow. Parents freak. Manager tries to calm the situation and get a band-aid and alcohol for the little frickwit, so she stops bleeding all over the floor. In the end, the butthole family isn't banned from the store. Boo. But stops coming soon after because idiot mom insists that the giant blue and gold macaw is friendly, even though he isn't, and gets her ear ripped up a good one. In the end, rat mom and babies get promoted to pet rats instead of feeders for their brave part in helping exact revenge of donghead families with demon spawn. The blue and gold macaw was also rewarded for his part with many french fries. Too long didn't read. Rat and macaw avenged their puppy brethren from the BS that is helicopter parents and their terrible children. Really hope that little brat doesn't get a pet anytime soon. At least not until she gets some better parents. Story 3. There was this kid who used to annoy me and my friend growing up. He was years younger than us and didn't just want to play with us. We played sports games with kids years younger than us. Age was never an issue for us. He just wanted to annoy us. We'd all play different games. Street hockey, baseball with a tennis ball or wiffle ball, etc. He'd constantly watch, waiting for his moment to jump in and frick the game up. We tried ignoring him at first, but there's only so many places to play in our neighborhood, so we really couldn't go to too many other places to play. After a while, we realized ignoring him wouldn't be enough. He had too much fun with it. We started trying to annoy him back, throw the ball at him, stuff like that. He always laughed as he dodged them, but would start wailing when we hit him. He went running home and his parents hated us. One day his father finally walked up to us and told us to relax and stop bullying his kid. Well, the kid had that butthole grin behind him knowing he's screwing you over. The father was actually reasonable enough to say he doesn't know who's telling the truth because he wasn't there. He asked us to ask the kid to leave or at least go elsewhere. We would go elsewhere, but the brat would follow us and annoy us constantly. We kinda got to the point where, as bad as it may have looked, we'd do something to him, he'd run crying home, and then we'd leave and find somewhere else to play. After a while, we were playing something and he was there to annoy us. The father drove by and happened to see the kid annoying us and slammed his brakes and just parked his car in the middle of the road. He absolutely tore into his kid. His kid was bawling his eyes out. His father made him apologize to us and apologize to us himself since he realized it was his kid causing all the issues. We never had another issue with the kid again. We'd all just laugh whenever we saw him and he'd get all mad and run off to probably annoy somebody else. Too long didn't read. Kid always annoyed us, went to tell his parents that we're screwing with him. His father finally catches his son lying and annoying us. His father rips into him and apologizes to us. This story put a huge grin on my face. Story 4. I worked at Round Table Pizza. One day while working the early shift, me and another manager were standing at the register talking. This guy comes up and asks if we'd seen his cell phone. His table was clean when he went up to go to the bathroom before he was about to leave. We asked the busser if he saw a phone and he said no. I decided to call the phone from the store. When I called, the phone was answered and a female voice was on the other line. The conversation went something like this. Me. Hello? Her. Yeah? What do you want? Me. Did you find this phone? Her. Yeah, I'll give it back to you for $100. Me. Hold on a second. Hand the phone to the customer and all I can hear is, hello? Yeah? Okay. Fine. He hangs up the phone and instantly whips out a knife and walks outside the store. Me and the other manager look at each other thinking someone is about to freaking die. The customer was mad. We walked over to the door and watched him just walk back and forth in front of the store. He eventually cools off and just waits by his truck. About 5 minutes pass and this teenager chick, she wasn't more than 18, walks up to him. She demands her $100 and he asks if she has the phone. She pulls it out of her pocket and is waving it around. He walks up to her and moves faster than I have ever seen someone move. He grabs her, puts her in a headlock and just starts punching her in the face. As he's punching her in the face, he's yelling, "Give me back my phone, brat! Give me back my phone!" She just throws his phone away from her and he just lets her go and shoves her away and just walks over and picks up his phone. At the top of her lungs, she's yelling, "My boyfriend's gonna kick your butt!" The guy's walking back to his truck and he just yells back, "Frick your wussy butt boyfriend!" Jumps into his truck and drives off, leaving the girl there with a stupid look on her face, like she couldn't believe he drove off. Her face was all bloody and it looked like she had a broken nose. I about peed, I laughed so hard. Dang, what a dumbass trying to use blackmail. Hopefully she's a bit smarter now. Story 5. Tim was hit by a car and almost died. Broken bones, brain injury, and a coma at the age of 9. He missed 2 years of school. When he came back, he joined my class. Mentally, he was there, but not. Academically, he was fine, but socially, he had a hard time making friends. I had an almost non-functioning left arm, tremors, and a slightly different walk due to his left leg being shattered. It made him an easy target. One morning, school started. Jeff, who was one of the primary agitators, really lets into him. That was almost 30-something years ago, and I can't remember what set him off. But Tim grabs Jeff's neck with the bad left arm. We found out the grip was just fine. He took his good right and punched him in the face uninterrupted for a good 60 seconds. Being 2 years older gave him a distinct reach advantage. I wish this had an effect on everybody, and they would leave him alone. I remember my 5th grade teacher shutting down class one day and chewing us out about Tim. But it did no good. It was back to normal the next day. Frick junior high. There's a reason I don't talk to those buttholes anymore. I wish I could tell you that middle school is better now. It's worse. I do not know how, but it keeps getting worse. Maybe locking all the children in the middle of the most violent and unremorseful time of their entire lives in one big building for 3 years is a bad idea. But when it's put that way, yeah, not the best idea. Story 6. I grew up in a really small town where all us kids went to school together, K through 12, unless you went to parochial school. All through elementary school, this girl who lived down the street from me was a total jerk. She was taller than most of the boys and would bully anybody she felt was beneath her. One day coming home on the bus, she was picking on this boy in my grade. We were a year younger than her. He wasn't an albino, but pretty dang close. White hair, really pale skin, thick glasses, and his parents saddled him with the name Clarence. Kid just couldn't catch a break. Anyway, this girl was leaning over the back of her seat and in his face the whole ride home, calling him names, making fun of his glasses, clothes, etc. A few of us tried to get her to stop, but she was relentless. Poor Clarence just sat there, his face getting redder and redder, the occasional tears sliding down his face. When the bus came to a stop, he slid to the end of the bench seat, calmly stood up and turned to her. Then, faster than anyone could have even taken a breath, he hauled off and did a full arm swing and smacked her in the face with his lunchbox. His metal lunchbox. Then he just turned into the aisle and slowly walked off the bus. They say when an EOD has a bad day, he turns into pink mist. Her nose had a bad day. She spent the next 3 months with varying degrees of black eyes as a result from the initial injury and subsequent surgeries to repair her nose. That was the last time she bullied anyone, and the best part of the whole story is that Clarence never got in trouble for it. That calm rage, I know the feeling. Story 7. Our neighbors have 5 kids. They're all brats, but the middle kid, a boy, is the worst. He was in front of the house one day while I was outside doing some landscaping in my front yard. A shiny new red pickup drove by, then slammed on the brakes and started backing up. It stopped in front of the brat's house. I heard the lady in the passenger seat yell, "Did you just throw a rock at our car?" Of course, the boy denied it and started making up some ridiculous excuse, like he always does when people catch him making mischief. The woman cut him off and told him to get his mom. Apparently, the woman in the truck was from the neighborhood and was also fed up with the kid and their nonsense. The mom finally came out, holding the youngest brat, and the woman in the truck proceeded to give her the kind of verbal beatdown that the mom should have been giving her own kid all along. Watching that mom stand there and listen to some stranger rightfully criticize her parenting for 10 minutes straight was gratifying. The only thing better was watching the brat squirm the whole time. That sort of thing happened to my dad. It was winter, and this butthole kid from up the street decided to throw an ice ball at his new car as he drove by. He slammed on the brakes, drove in reverse at top speed, and caught the sucker almost running him over. He gave the kid a verbal throwdown and scared the poop head so bad, never did it again. Story 8. I was driving a fire truck back from an all-night fire about 7 a.m. This truck's diesel mixture was a bit rich, so if you sat for a while and gunned it, you might get smoke from the exhaust. As I approached a high school from the residential street I was on, there were 6 middle school kids waiting for the school bus on the corner. As some kids do, they stand or walk in the street and refuse to move their cars. As I came to the intersection, one little poop looked at me smugly and did not move, causing me to have to go into the oncoming lane at the intersection. I patiently waited until I could make my turn into the highway, then gunned the poop out of the fire truck's diesel engine, causing a thick blob of black smoke to come out of the exhaust, which was mid-truck pointed right at the kids. They were coated in thick, oily diesel fumes, especially Mr. Smug Poop. And last I saw, they were halfway down the block on the sidewalk, running with me on the road, spewing smoke after them. Mr. Smug looked at me with terror in his little half-developed mind. Mr. Smug. Story 9. I had an answer to a similar thread that I think works here, so I'll just copy-paste. When I was working at an airsoft field, we had parties come in all the time. One party, the birthday kid was being a total dong to his friend, shooting really close, not calling hits, and yelling that he hit people when he never did. So me and my coworker had had enough of this kid being a dong, so we decided to let the boss's son play. He's really competitive and doesn't really know how to take it easy. But on the opposite team, we told him to be really tough on the birthday kid for a game or two and teach him a little lesson. However, the boss's son just went nuts after the birthday kid, shot him in the back of the head really close. Typically, you tell someone to surrender and they just go back to respawn. Needless to say, the boss's son got really mad and just lit the kid up point blank full auto. The birthday kid started bawling and the party left early. My boss just asked if he was being an LB, and when we said yes, he just shrugged. God, I wish I was that kid. I'd love to go crazy on some little brat at his own birthday party. Story 10. I was working at a Pizza Hut at the time. Some kid around age 10 or so went into the men's restroom and pooped in the urinal and then proceeded to smear it all over the goddamn place. We knew it was the kid due to it not being very busy that day, and a coworker spotted the mess right after the kid left the bathroom. We weren't sure what to do, but the manager decided to tell the parents. We were all glad the dad stepped up. Otherwise, we would have had to clean it. The father was mad. He cleaned it up. He stood over him yelling at him and made him clean it all. The boy was crying, but frick that kid. He was old enough to know you don't do that stuff. He wasn't mentally impaired. He was just a butt. Too long didn't read. 10-year-old brat smeared his own poop all over a Pizza Hut. His father made him clean it up. Story 11. When I was in my mid-teens, a little neighborhood girl about 5 to 6 years younger than me came to my door. She accused me of putting my name on her sidewalk. It recently been done, except, of course, that wasn't my name on the sidewalk. That was not enough. She then accused me of using a fake name on the sidewalk so I wouldn't get caught. I asked her why, because that would defeat the purpose, to which she came up with this gem. "I'm gonna tell my dad you hit me." No such thing had happened. Then she turned to run off and did just that. Right face first into the sharp stone/stucco wall, splitting her lips, nose, and cheek open pretty bad. She told her dad I did it. He came to my door and calmly asked me what happened, and I told him. Yeah, that's something she'd do. Sigh, I'm raising a gold digger kid. That sounds more psychotic than gold digging. Story 12. I once saw a kid run up to a man and kick him square in the balls. The man immediately dropped to his knees, then pulled a gun from his waistline and aimed it at the kid to scare him off. I'm not one to say that anyone deserves one thing or another, but I lived in a fairly bad neighborhood at the time. So maybe that kid learned a lesson about what might happen if you frick with someone. Honestly, knowing it was a fairly bad neighborhood, I'd be inclined to do the same. The kid could have been the first part of a mugging. As cynical as that is to say, I've seen gangs use kids firsthand, and they do it because they know the kid won't get in serious trouble. Story 13. Back in high school, there was this kid Andrew. He had Asperger's. He was a cool kid though. I used to talk about Pokemon with him. Anyway, one day after class, one of the football kids was being a jerk and blocking Andrew from walking down the hall. He kept stopping right in front of him and making Andrew slam into his back. Right as I was about to say something, the football kid stopped again, and Andrew lurched forward and bit the kid in the neck. The football kid screamed and Andrew took off running down the hall. I laughed my butt off for days at that one. Andrew used bite. Story 14. My mom told me this story when I was a kid, I think around 4 years old. I was at soccer practice and we got a water break. The team had ongoing practices for all age groups at the same time. Anyways, was in line to drink water when an older, probably around 10, kid decided to cut in front of me. My mom said, and I quote, "You looked straight up at him and punched him right in the balls." Oof. The kid apparently fell to the floor and I walked right over him to get my water. I wish I remembered this. I wish this was recorded. Story 15. I was working the shoe department at Sears back when I was 18. One day this little brat kid is there with his unattentive mother. He's running around, knocking stuff over, making a mess. I ask her to keep him in check and she refuses. The kid starts running circles around the register. Well, the register was on a little island in the middle of the department and had a slide-out shelf about waist high to an average person. I'm ringing up an actual customer, so slide out the shelf and set this person's shoebox on the shelf. Little brat comes flying around the corner and wham! Forehead connects with the shelf in a loud butt crack. He immediately falls backwards, blammo, right on the floor, and then starts wailing. The mother gives me a dirty look and gathers up her brat, making her way out of the store. The customer and I both watch her go and then just sort of shrug it off. Shrug it off? How did you not just burst out laughing? Story 16. One day playing at the park when we were kids, my bratty neighbor decided to use her sharp nails to scratch the heck out of all the other girls. We were all under 10 at the time. I don't remember being scratched myself, but my sister had some awful red streaks down her back. My mom was livid and went to tell off the girl's mom about her daughter's crazy behavior. It turned into a shouting match. I guess my mom won because the other mom went into her house and came back a few minutes later with her daughter's nail trimmings. She gave them to my mom. Gag. You gotta love proof sometimes. Story 17. I went to see a monkey show in Thailand where the trained monkeys perform various circus tricks for tourists. Two 12-ish-year-old kids were poking one of the monkeys with a stick through the cage and their parents weren't taking any notice. During the show, the monkeys were performing a trick where they throw a ball to the audience and then catch it. The tormented monkey ran straight up to one of the kids and threw the ball point blank straight into his face. The monkey had a pretty good arm on him, enough to make kids' eyes water and leave a red mark. Story 18. A 10-year-old kid dumped a cup of water on my 18-year-old brother to show off for his friends. My brother responded by sticking the kid headfirst into an empty trash can, except it wasn't empty. It had a foot of rainwater mixed with a decade of garbage drippings in the bottom. Ugh. The can tipped and the kid came out soaked, wailing, and smelling of sewage. He ran home and never spoke to nor fricked with my brother again. For the record, if he knew the can was full of water, he wouldn't have dumped the kid in there. Sounds like a happy accident to me. Story 19. I saw a kid terrorizing a dog at a park. The dog was tied to a pole and the kid was chasing the dog around on his bike. The owner came back and started yelling at the kid. As the kid rode off, he popped a wheelie and the front wheel of his tire popped off in midair and he did a faceplant into the parking lot. I felt pretty bad for laughing, but couldn't help it. It was so unexpected. You shouldn't have felt bad. Story 20. A guy who used to pick on me real mercilessly in high school got busted for selling crack in the high school parking lot. Senior year. Far as I know, he's still in prison since he was over 18. Held back a few times at the end of the arrest. Right out of high school into prison? Probably a bit harsh, but some would say he got what he deserved. Not sure if this has already gone meta or... Story 21. I was around 8 years old on a jumping castle and this random kid bounces over and asks how old I was. After telling him, he immediately started punching me in the face and ran away. I turned back to see if he had given chase, but instead he jumped off awkwardly and had broken his ankle. I laughed quite hard. Should have gone over and punched him in the face. Story 22. The little jerk that pushed my daughter down and stole her pinwheel toy from her at the park completely biffed into the slide running away. Chuckled. I won't even pretend like I didn't. He was there unsupervised and terrorizing the younger kids. I calmly walked up smirking after he was laying there for a bit, winded, and grabbed my daughter's toy back from the ground beside him. Story 23. Had a punk neighbor, 12, that would constantly taunt and tease my little sister, 7. Neighbor boy decides one day to throw a large, small baseball bat-sized stick in my yard and tell my little sister to fetch. She surprisingly goes to get the stick, only to whack him across the face with it. She has learned well, to say the least. Story 24. Anytime you see a kid hurt themselves doing something their parents just finished telling them not to do, watch a kid slam his finger in a door just minutes after his mother told him to quit messing with it and sit down. I chuckled a little bit. Priceless. Story 25. There was a kid in high school that was trying to rob an ice cream truck. The driver accidentally ran him over and broke both of his legs. Bangarang. Story 26. I saw a kid being a dog to other children at the park. He then thought it was an awesome idea to try out the baby swings. He got stuck and the fire department had to come and cut him out of the swing. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more videos to come or else this spider will be in your bed tonight.